News Channel 5 Network. This is Sportsline.
Good evening, Nashville. Welcome to Sportsline here on News Channel 5 Plus. It is the Wednesday extravaganza. Jon Burton, great to be here. Great to have you along with us on this Wednesday evening. Of course, a lot going on in the world of sports. We've got the conference championship games in the NFL coming up. Don't forget, over on News Channel 5, the late game, Patriots at the Chiefs, 5:40 kickoff. We'll have that for you on News Channel 5. And, of course, before that, it's the Saints and the Rams from New Orleans. That is the early game. So by this time, Sunday night, we'll have a good idea as to who's heading to the Super Bowl. And should be two great matchups. Again, Patriots, Chiefs from Kansas City. Going to be cold there on News Channel 5 at 5:40. But tonight we're going to talk about a little slice of Americana known as the Harlem Globetrotters. And they've been entertaining fans all over the world with their basketball and their magic for decades, of course. I remember being a young 12-year-old kid going to see the Harlem Globetrotters and Geese Osby and Curly Neal and all the boys back then. They will actually be here in Nashville on January 24th at Bridgestone Arena. So the Harlem Globetrotters getting set to come into town. But tonight we're going to talk about one former Harlem Globetrotter who's an amazing story, who overcame all kinds of adversity to help others. And they used to call him Jumpin' Johnny Kline. And there's a new documentary coming out that's going to chronicle the life of this incredible man and this incredible athlete. Take a look.
Today we're going to discuss drugs. And if you abuse them enough, they can kill you. I know because they almost killed me.
Because I was jumping all the time, they called me Jumpin' Johnny Kline.
Johnny Kline was a powerhouse for the Harlem Globetrotters.
I used to love to rebound.
He could out-rebound all these tall people.
But couldn't nobody hang as high as he could. Michael Jordan ain't doing nothing Kline couldn't do.
Johnny Kline is really a superstar.
It's a very similar story to what Jackie Robinson endured.
To have overcome the things that he's overcome, he's a symbol to many people.
Alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, crack, cocaine, heroin.
And one thing led to another. There was the first thing across my mind, you're going to have to kill that man.
At Wayne State, he was an All-American. The kids saying now he had mad hops.
I've never really seen anything like him.
His life shows you all of what sports can be, you know.
He saw society, he saw a need, and he committed himself to addressing that need.
John, how would you like to be remembered?
Remembered? Who's going to remember me?
That's right. It's called Jumpin' Johnny, the incredible true story of Dr. Jon Kline, and it's produced by the fine folks at Addiction Campuses. And we have Cameron McCaslin here, the video producer and editor from Addiction Campuses, and my friend Aaron Deneen, the creative director from Addiction Campuses. You guys did a great job. I know a lot of hard work putting this documentary, this piece together. It's going to premiere later this month. First of all, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
And Aaron, I got to start with you because cards on the table here, folks. Aaron is a dear friend of mine. We've known each other. I met you pretty much as soon as I put boots to the ground here in Nashville. We've been friends a long time. You told me about this project several weeks ago. How exciting is it to be a part of something like this, to tell this story about somebody that maybe not a lot of people know about but should know about?
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing opportunity to use a different avenue to reach people and educate people, not only on, Dr. Kline's life, but, civil rights and addiction and recovery and redemption. It's a really great story, and I think that everybody would really benefit from watching it, and we hope that you do.
Absolutely. And Cameron, for those that aren't familiar with Addiction Campuses, talk a little bit about what you guys do.
So Addiction Campuses is a place that likes to see people find recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, and we are constantly looking for new ways to just open the idea of it. It's hard for anyone to break that cycle of addiction, and what we want to do is show people it can be done. And with Dr. Kline especially, there was a man who, he did something great, he got lost for a little while, but he was able to turn his life around and come back and live a totally fulfilled life and help a lot of people after the fact.
Yeah, no question about it. And listen, I've been a Harlem Globetrotter fan for as long as, you know, I can remember. Again, I remember going to see them when I was a very young man, and just they've entertained audiences all over the world with their basketball and their comedy and everything like that. I'm sorry to say I never heard of Jumpin' Johnny Kline. So how did you guys hear about this story, and when did you guys get the idea to put together this documentary?
Well, I came to addiction campuses just a little over a year ago. January 2nd was my first day, and me and Erin had talked a lot about trying to do some new things. That was the number one thing that she really wanted to do, was try to tell a different kind of story. The Globetrotters were coming to town last year, and I wanted to just see if we could find a story that, you know, we could touch and just kind of see if we could do something with the Globetrotters. I started doing some research, and I found the story about John Kline, and come to find out he lived just north of Nashville. So spent a couple days on the phone. We got in touch with someone in his family, and the next thing you know, I think it was about a week and a half later, we went out to interview him, and the stories were just so incredible. we kind of just kept following it, is the best way to put it. And you know, he told us the story of his life and left out didn't leave out any of the gory details, because he was ready to tell the whole thing.
Yeah, and it is really an amazing story of redemption, as you said, doing something great, disappearing for a while, and then coming back and helping others. Erin, how fascinated were you when you started to learn about this man and everything he had been through?
It was amazing, because, you know, he grew up in the 50s when the resources for addiction were not as great as they are now, and he managed to pull himself out of like a really deep hole and came back and wrote books and helped people, and committed his life to, you know, serving people in that same boat. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is. So tell me about Jumpin' Johnny Kline, the basketball player. This guy was pretty much, you know, the way they talk about it in the trailer there, this guy was kind of like Michael Jordan and LeBron James before Michael Jordan and LeBron James, or Julius Erving, a guy that, a tremendous athlete, tremendous jumping ability, could score, could rebound, could pretty much do it all, right?
He was kind of a guy, he came out of nowhere in the sense that he really didn't play much high school basketball, and he was a playground player. Someone saw him on a playground and said, hey, you should go talk to the people at Wayne University in Detroit.
Wow.
He got a scholarship. They put him on the team.
Detroit,
he's from Detroit originally. And they put him on the team there at Wayne, and he played 3 years and broke every record that they had at that point. I mean, Wayne went from being a subpar basketball group to they won the first Motor City Championship. And the next thing you know, he's all over the newspapers. He's getting all the press. And he did well for 3 years, and ultimately the books got him. He lost his scholarship. So he left from there, went to the Globetrotters, and he spent the next basically 7 years of his life touring the world, doing, you know, the thing that the Harlem Globetrotters did best, which was, you know, play basketball and spread good cheer. And
that's the thing people don't realize about the Harlem Globetrotters, I think, is the fact that, you know, years ago, as kind of like a media publicity stunt, I played against the Harlem Globetrotters when I was in Pittsburgh, you know, for the Washington Generals. It's on YouTube if you want to look at it. It's totally ridiculous. But the thing about it is, and Erin knows my involvement in professional wrestling, having done a little bit and understanding kind of the sports entertainment aspect. Yeah, it's sports, but it's sports entertainment. Those guys had to be on every night.
It is.
And for them to be able to perform at such a high level and such an entertaining level night after night after night, yeah, we kind of knew when the game started who was going to win and all that kind of stuff, but you had to bring it every night, and Jumpin' Johnny was one of those guys.
Absolutely, and that is one of the interesting things about Johnny. He was kind of right there in the middle of when that started, because the Globetrotters, historically, they used to be just a straight basketball team, and they lost games. The year that Johnny started, that was the Globetrotters' first undefeated season, and since then they don't lose. That's just how it works, and it's a great show. If you know, you were talking about them coming into town, I recommend everybody go out and see that. It's so much fun.
It really is, and I remember when I went to see them, Erin, you'll like this story. That was the first year they had a young lady actually in their lineup. Yeah, so it was a little bit of girl power. Erin, how much did you know? Obviously, everybody knows about the Harlem Globetrotters. Had you gone to see them as a kid growing up in Boston? How much did you know about the Globetrotters beyond what you saw on maybe Wild World of Sports back in the day?
I knew nothing other than that they were cool and could dribble and do all the things I wish I could do. But I had never gone to a game. The first game that I went to was with Dr. Kline, and it was amazing. It was incredibly entertaining. I felt like a little kid, and I wanted them to throw the bucket in my direction, and I wanted all the things, and it was so much fun. It was really awesome.
Yeah, and so he has his career with the. How long was he with the Globetrotters?
He was with the Globetrotters from 1953 to 1959.
Okay.
So he was there when Meadowlark Lemon was starting out. He played with Wilt Chamberlain briefly. Right when Wilt was coming in and doing his year with the Globetrotters, that was right when Johnny was about to leave. And after that, he went into the Eastern Pro League. He played with a team called the Harlem Ambassadors for a while. And, and ultimately, after that, he was retired. So
he never played in the NBA or anything like that? Did he have any tryouts in the NBA? Or?
He did. He played with the Pistons. Basically on tryout, he played about 10 exhibition games for the Pistons in 1957, and that was at the point. The way that Johnny told it back then, they only had about 2 black players to every NBA team, and so there was like the NBA was in 1950. They started letting black players in, but even then they were kind of keeping the doors closed to it. So he didn't make the team, but he was there in Detroit, playing games. I think I want to say the Hawks was one of his big games there, but just missed the cut. He was basically the last guy that got cut from the team that didn't go on.
Wow. So obviously after his playing days are done, he kind of got lost there for a while, and drugs obviously became a big part of his life. What were some of the stories he talked about, just kind of how he got into the drug culture and how it, I guess, kind of got a hold of him?
Well, he talks a lot about how he tried things where as early as high school he was kind of playing around with it, and he basically told us that back then with the Globetrotters they toured the world, and all of those vices were available to those guys. It caught up with him at a certain point, and as you start to get older, things would hurt a little bit more, so he started using a little bit more, and it just got to the point where he caught up. So when he was playing with the Harlem Ambassadors, he tells a story in the movie about how he had joined the team, but he was taking methadone to basically get himself where he could get through a game, because otherwise he would have to vomit, and that's what he did.
And that wasn't part of the act,
no,
right?
Not at all.
They'll throw the water on you, but
and it ultimately it robbed him of what could have been many more years of his career, because he just couldn't play and keep with the drugs, and the drugs had just taken a hold of him.
And I think a lot of people don't realize, a lot of drug abuse, right? It starts with casual use and occasional use, and it really does become it really does, affect your life. It does really just grab a hold of your life, where it is a lot of people don't realize that it really is a disease, because a lot of people that are on drugs want to get off drugs, but they just can't, because it's a disease. It's something that they can't do. And I know all of us in our lives have seen people succumb to that, and that's the sad part when you see a guy like Dr. Kline, who was such an incredible athlete, succumb to that. When you talk to somebody like Dr. Kline and you hear the stories, what was his lowest point? Did he talk about that? Did he have like a low point where he finally decided, you know what, I got to do something. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. What was that point for Jon Kline? He
does talk about his low point. He had been raised by his aunt in Detroit, and whenever he was done with the Globetrotters, he went to New York to try to play for another basketball team, and he was in contact with his aunt, he said, daily. One day he called, and she had passed away. She had fell and hit her head, and it was just a little bit too much for him to bear. It brought him back to Detroit for the funeral, and once he came back home, he never returned to New York to try to play basketball again, because he got caught up with some old friends who were using drugs, and it wrecked him. And I think that's the thing about addiction in general. It robs you of so many things. It robbed him of his basketball career. It robbed him of his family. It robbed him of 10 years of his life where he doesn't necessarily know where he was all the time. And it's funny whenever you look at someone from in the scope of history, because I can trace him back to his youth, see some stuff from high school, see some stuff from college, see about him in all different parts of the world playing with the Globetrotters, and then 10 years just goes away and there's no record of him being on the planet. And those years are the years that drugs robbed him of his life. Man, that's incredible. All right, we're going to take our first break. We're going to talk more about this incredible documentary that's going to be coming out, and we're really looking forward to it. It's called Jumpin' Johnny, the incredible true story of Dr. Jon Kline, the former Harlem Globetrotter who really turned his life around post-basketball. Aaron Deneen, Cameron McCaslin from Addiction Campuses are here. They put together
this great documentary. We're going to talk more about it when we come back right here on Sportsline. Stay with us.